Welcome to the Change Within podcast. This is Virg Dzurinko here. We are on episode 30. I cannot believe this. This has been a journey of change and fulfillment for the perspectives of so many people in our society to express what their platforms have been. And this person is no exception to the rule. I have a very special guest, Judith Insell. Judith, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for inviting me to be on the podcast.
Absolutely. I just wanted to get right into it with you. And something that I love to ask all of my guests, especially on the first question, is what your childhood was like growing up.
that's, that's a good question. My childhood was, I think, when I look back, really, really amazing. I was born and raised in the Bronx. So I'm a city kid. I'm a native New Yorker, and just growing up in New York City was really great, just from you know, all the culture and the vibrancy of New York City was really amazing. Obviously, when I was really little, I wasn't like going around town by myself, but as I got older, it was great to kind of discover all these amazing things that go on in New York City just as a kid, as a teenager, getting on subway trains, getting on subway trains, going to all these different neighborhoods, experiencing all these different cultures all in one city. It was truly amazing, and I had all these friends who were from all these different backgrounds. So that was really cool.
Do you feel like it helped you grow up faster living in a city?
I really do. I do. I think almost to the point of you know, the whole thing about going on the subway. So that was like a big
Yeah.
deal for my parents. Like, when should you go on the subway by yourself for the first time? Because my parents actually were not from New York City. My dad was from Texas, my mom from Florida. So
Oh, wow.
they actually met each other at Florida A&M, and they eventually ended up in New York because of work for my dad. So like this whole kind of big city-ish thing was not always the way they were hoping to raise their kids, I think, as I look back. So there was this whole big discussion like, when do you go in the subway by yourself? So I happened to get into music and art high school, and that's not in the Bronx. So
Right.
it's all of a sudden this thing like, how are you going to school? And that's actually when I started to go on the subway by myself, was when I was in the ninth grade. I needed to get to school. so so that's really what prompted it. And before that, I was like, I'd go around the Bronx by myself on buses and subways and stuff, but not that much. Because the crazy thing about the Bronx, was, as you learn when you're growing up there, is like all these subway lines kind of go up the sides of the Bronx, but they don't go across to each other in the middle.
I'm going to make a
So
statement real quick. So, this is interesting because I do feel like in New York City, this only happens even to people as they get older in their lives. As you gain wisdom throughout your years, the one thing that is never guaranteed is your way of directions through the New York City subway system.
right. So everything is like all points lead to Manhattan. So actually I didn't have that much subway experience until I started going to music and art high school. I went around on buses in the Bronx a lot, but the subway was like a new kind of weird thing. And I started. That was like the mid '80s when I was going on the subway. There was still loads of graffiti and stuff, and interesting things to see, and people, and the subway trains were kind of rickety and old still at that point.
And you know what's interesting in that case? Like, let's say within the 80s when you were going to school, taking the subways, especially when you learn more about old school hip hop, you're getting people like Grandmaster Caz and like his pioneer of individuals who have done graffiti and stuff like that all throughout the subway system. So it's really interesting to have like that sort of craft and perspective during that period of time.
Yeah, actually, I honestly I miss it. It made for subway rides that were more interesting to actually see all that graffiti. I know it's not legal, but it was actually pretty fun to see all the tags and stuff and on the different subway cars as you were going on your way down into Manhattan. And then when they changed to like the shiny metal steel ones with no graffiti at all. It was kind of a shocking changeover in a way. I had to get used to it.
And final question on this. So curious as somebody who definitely had to travel to school, what's it like lugging like any sort of instruments on the train? Like what was the biggest load of like instruments that you've had to carry, like going from one place to another?
Well, I think actually was before I got when I was younger, I was only carrying a viola. So let me put it
Fair
that
enough.
way. But even that was like weird. The questions, and I bet you could ask any musician who goes throughout New York at all, kids, professionals, anybody, amateur musicians. People ask you a ton of questions about the instrument you're carrying. It's like, what is that? And it's like you like end up telling them what it is, and they're just like, "What's a viola? Never heard of it before." Then you have to kind of explain what it is, and then they're like, "Well, you play that thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I play it." Like, why would I be carrying this if I don't know how to use it?
This is the unfortunate circumstances of not having Wi-Fi on the subway system as well.
So yeah, there would have been a lot of googling back then if that were possible. But I think the most instruments I ever had to carry, um, when I was in Manhattan School of Music, I was doing kind of like a viola major, and for a hobby, I played trombone as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So sometimes I would have to carry both of those at the same time, and then when I started to really do a lot of private lesson teaching, I would have to carry a viola and a violin quite often.
Oh boy.
Oh,
That definitely
yeah.
sounds like the experience in itself.
Yeah, there have been moments when I've had to like have two instruments at the same time, lugging them on subways, buses. Not fun, really not fun. But I was grateful to have the system to get around so well.
Definitely. And maybe a transition that could be more fun, especially on a first time experience doing this. What was it like to perform in front of people for the first time?
Oh, for the first time, I think the first major performance I ever did, funny enough, was when I was in middle school, and it was at Carnegie Hall, of all places.
Oh my God. Wow.
So it was totally nerve wracking. I can't even remember exactly why we were doing it there because I was so nervous. But if I recall, we were in middle school and they needed a string quartet to play at some kind of like conference or something. So I went to this amazing middle school that had an incredible program, IS 181, now known as MS 181, in the Bronx, public school. And I it just happened that that's where I was zoned to go to school, but it had this incredible music program, and the like Bronx leaders of the borough-wide orchestras, which they don't have anymore, but there were these incredible orchestra band and chorus. Those three people worked at my school in middle school. So I think that's how we ended up on the stage at Carnegie Hall, because somebody reached out to the school and said, "Hey, can you have put together a string quartet to play at the conference? And there I was, like, totally insane. Four people on the stage of Carnegie Hall who are like 12 years old.
And on the realm that you've never been exposed to an environment like that before, I'm sure it was a whirlwind of experience that not only just set you up to be put on the spot, but then at the same time, it gave you a platform to understand that when you have opportunities like this again, it gives you the opportunity of control.
Yeah, it definitely did. It was kind of almost like a surreal experience for me that I really remember out of like other playing performances in my past where it was so bare and almost naked experience where there's just the four of us. We're in this giant hall. It's a super famous place that everybody who's ever played any major music has performed there. And I'm there like 12, 13 years old playing with these three other people. We were all really scared, but we were all like really excited at the exact same time.
That must have been amazing because, like, especially on the fact that the fear turns into excitement, especially when it's all said and done, then it's just something you reflect on afterwards too.
Yeah, I mean, all these years later, I remember that first time playing there, and I have played there since, in small orchestras and chamber orchestra, medium-sized orchestras at Carnegie Hall, um, but nothing compared to that. like
Hmm.
like I've never played there with just three other people since that one moment, and it was such a pivotal moment for me way back then, thinking, "Wow, this is like really cool. I did it." And I can say that I've played at Carnegie Hall for the rest of my life. I had no idea if it would ever continue, that I'd ever go on and play there again, which I am glad that I have had a few opportunities to play there. But um, it was so, it's the kind of thing where you're just like, if I recall, I was not in the eighth grade. I think it was like seventh grade, and I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And it was one of those moments where it's like, I could do this. I could do this for the rest of my life.
And it's so weird how you say a statement like that, and as many people, they don't follow their dreams in the fruition of that time period of their life. Then there's other people. It could literally it could literally be based in the city that they're in, and sometimes the opportunities can spark and present for themselves. It's insane to me.
Right. So I was happy that I got that opportunity. It really meant a lot.
Definitely. And kind of to pivot a little bit further in your career, being a violinist, something for the perspective of so many people. When you're working with artists at the time, with Beyonce, India Ari, and Jessica Simpson, do you think mainstream music values the violin towards composing music?
Well, as I explained before, violin is like like almost like my minor instrument. Viola is my major instrument. That's the one that I studied and have been performing in professionally. I can play violin, I can teach violin, but viola is my primary instrument. But overall, in general, for strings, it's been a really interesting journey, I think, for string players in pop music. So
Hmm.
I almost feel like there was a huge legacy before I ended up doing it with, like, for example, like Barry White would have huge string orchestras that would play background strings on his R&B albums. And so string orchestras have always kind of been a part of pop music. You can even look at the Beatles. They have tremendous amounts of music that have string quartets on them. So, like, the string sound has been really evident a lot of the time. So, when I was asked to do those different projects and play background strings with those artists, I felt like I was kind of continuing this legacy onward. And it was definitely a lot of fun. The music, it really, I think, appeals to a lot of people. They're not really sure, I think, that they're hearing like live string instruments on the recordings, but that's what's happening. It's not synthesized sound, it's actually us playing. And the collaboration with the artists, it meant a lot. What I guess what I'm saying is those artists could have done anything with their music, with their arrangement, and working with any instruments, and they decided that that sound, the string sound, was important enough for them to include it in their project. And there are still plenty of artists that are doing that now. I don't think it's happening as much as it was back when I was doing that in like the like early 2000s. But I think some artists are more open to that sound of strings than others.
And I guess a follow-up question on this too is when you play the viola, something that I'm curious about is what type of feelings do you emote as you're playing something like that?
Oh, well, this is good. I mean, this is a good question because as I've gone through my career as a violist, it's something that I've thought about as well. Um, in almost so many ways, I feel like viola is my actual voice than beyond just talking to people. It helps me to express like an array of emotions, like from elation to complete anger to solitude and calmness. There's just no emotion that I can't express that I'm feeling at the time that I'm playing that I really can't tap into when I'm playing. So that's one of the reasons why I think actual music education is so important, because it does help students to express themselves on a higher level than just talking. That's really how I feel about it.
And to transition to that point, so being an interim executive director for the Bronx Arts Ensemble, what is your strongest trait in being an educator throughout your time working there?
So I will give you the breaking news scoop. I am not the interim executive director anymore. I am now the executive director outright.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
So thank you. That
My
happened at
God.
the end of this
Amazing.
past week. So I'm really excited to be starting this new chapter, completely leading the organization. But yes, that has a lot to do with what we're doing in the Bronx. The Bronx Arts Ensemble is all about serving the students and communities of the Bronx with arts education in all different arts discipline of music, theater, dance, visual arts. Um, and in that respect, we feel like it's our duty to serve these students and the communities that they're in. That means their families, their extended families. That means the small business owner. That means the hospitals, the community centers, to help them to stay as connected with the arts as possible. A lot of it has to do with education. We've educated thousands of students over decades in how to create the art, but also how to appreciate the art, to understand the art, to be a better art audience. We know the value of expressing yourself through art, and when students come to our classrooms and we're working with the students, we also take into account who they are. They are not just one dimensional figures. They are people that have feelings, struggles in life, elation, all those emotions come with that person. And each person wants to be able to express themselves in all these different ways. And we show them that you can express yourself through the art. We'll teach you the skill of how to make the art. And in the process, I think the students realize, oh, I know how to do this. So now I can actually show what I'm feeling through doing this. And that's really been a major part of the Bronx Arts Ensemble education curriculum, is to support the students to express themselves beyond just learning the skill. And then the other part of that, as we accept who they are, acknowledging that they are all different people from all different kinds of cultures. So we have kids that are from all different points of the world. Their parents have come and settled there, from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Africa, Ireland. The whole borough of the Bronx has this mixture of all these different kinds of people in it. So that makes a challenge for us as educators of Bronx Arts Ensemble to recognize that they are students that come with their own set of culture, and we want to help them to uplift their culture, enhance what they're doing with their culture through the arts, and also help them to be introduced to other cultures through art as well.
And to kind of refer back to what you were talking about in your childhood, I feel like this can be a sense of opportunity for them to kind of be intertwined in different cultures, because as you were going through like taking the train at a young age, I'm sure a lot of these kids can empathize, can have a sense of empathy in what you were going through like at that point. So they're going to be acclimated to be talking to new people as they're developing their mindset and skill set at the same time.
Yeah, I think you're totally correct. The arts education can be like a bridge for students to actually get to know each other better and their communities better. There's just something about creating art that almost like helps people to expose themselves in a way that's not necessarily harmful or shameful. It's like you express yourself and say, this is my art, I'm sharing it with you, and what do you think about it? And do you have some art to share with me? It's almost like there's this whole communication going on just through making the art. So it helps the students to actually feel more comfortable relating and communicating with others.
Absolutely. And what's the feeling like to witness kids find their own discipline toward an instrument they love playing?
Oh my goodness, it's really something. You see almost like a aha moment or the light going on. You see that the kid has been exposed to an art form, or particularly, as you said, an instrument, and they will almost feel like they've, like I did when I found my voice in this actual instrument, and this is how I can express myself beyond what I've done before. I think I was a pretty quiet kid, and up until that point when I started viola, I just kind of, did my work at school. I did what I was supposed to do. My parents tell me what to do and this and that. But all of a sudden, it was like, wow, this is my thing. I really remember that.
Huh.
I was in the fifth grade. I'm like, this is my thing, and I want to do this, and I want to like be involved with learning how to do this. And it opened up so many different things to me. It opened up a whole new world of friends for me as well. People that were like, as I say now, it opened my own like musical tribe. Like, those are my people.
That's a
Like,
good way
they
to put
want
it.
to do this. Right. Like, they want to do this. I want to do this. We're almost speaking the same language through playing an instrument with each other. And I think it when you see kids find that it's almost like they've been looking for something to connect them with somebody else.
Absolutely. And in trying times such as the pandemic, I'm sure the mindset could be compromised, but also given the sense to adapt as well. So, kind of reflecting from that point, what was it kind of like to adjust your curriculum for the kids who are learning in today's world?
So it's been very challenging. Everybody is challenged to be online in this kind of environment for many hours a day. So it's not just adults, it's the kids as well. So they getting regulated to having an interactive arts connection over an online platform is very difficult. So what we had to do is just first of all acknowledge this is difficult. This is going to be different from what we had to do before, and let's figure out how to meet the kids where they are with this whole situation. So things like having accessibility to instruments, that's been an issue. Trying to like pivot over to working with whatever they can get their hands on has been an issue. So some classes that we were teaching in instrumental music like violin or drums, or guitar, things like that, we try to get the schools to get the instruments to the students. That wasn't always possible. So we had to almost shift over a lot of the instrumental music classes to this idea of general music, where we're still teaching them the basic concepts of music, like rhythm and melody and harmony, and trying to keep them engaged online, use a lot of like musical game activities to keep them interested while we were trying to see how much we could actually get back closer to instruments in people's hands and having them in person. So we're still not there yet. So we're still not in person completely. We still have many of our schools are basically still having us do remote learning with the students. So we have to kind of like evolve as this goes on. Really, it's been kind of like what works this week might not work next week, and just trying to keep the students engaged and interested.
You kind of set off a light bulb in my head when you were talking about this too. So, something that I've learned with kids as I'm starting to become a teacher as a career transition myself is they look for long term goals, whether it's offered to them initially or not. Something that I've observed throughout about the pandemic is especially in late night talk shows like a Stephen Colbert or a Seth Meyers. Typically, what happens is they have a band to introduce. If there's a way where there's an opportunity where you can get someone like a Stephen Colbert engaged with your program and giving kids the opportunity to open the show on something like that, maybe it could have a partnership collision between that show and your talent.
Oh, that would be great. I mean, we would love to engage our students in anything that's kind of like exciting and energizing and keeping them engaged with the idea of, and maybe John Baptiste comes and enters the
I was
Zoom
going to mention
meeting
him too, for sure.
and hangs out with the kids and talks to them about like his career, things like that, or the members of the Roots come in and talk about what they had to do to become the band that they are. So yeah, I mean, I'd be all for it. We just have to like work it out and figure out whether or not they are willing to do it. Like the school kids, of course they would want that.
I think this is going to be a change within how we're going to redirect the show in some cases too. So you never know what could happen, right?
Okay, that would be great. We'll get some of our students, we have one program in particular that we have a PSMS 83 in the Bronx. That's like an amazing instrumental music program. I'm sure they would be totally happy to have those people come, Baptiste or the Roots, Q-Tip, any of them, like
Right.
uh, Questlove, anybody to come in. Any musicians that are like really doing the work now in this environment, like the here and now. Um, I think that would really energize them to keep going. It's I think it's that situation for all of us at this point, how to just make sure we keep going online until we get to the next level where we're re-entering the in-person platform.
As I'm sure what we just talked about maybe answered some things on a professional level with my last question. What I'm curious about for you is what is the biggest change, as my last question, that you want to see for yourself in 2021?
Ah, well, like I said, I just became the executive director of the organization. And for me, myself, I just want to make sure that I continue to help Bronx Arts Ensemble to do its really amazing work with its students, continue to serve the communities of the Bronx and beyond. We now, with our online presence, we've had interactions with people across the globe. Last summer, we had an amazing program that we did, an online summer arts institute, and we had people that were engaged from everywhere: Australia, London, Utah. We would get all these
Wow.
responses that people were actually engaging in our arts education programs. And then we've also been putting our concerts online as well. And we've been getting a lot of people from all over the globe watching the performances of our teaching artists, of our core performing artists at the Bronx Arts Ensemble with guest artists. And it's been amazing to be able to actually reach out further than the Bronx. It's something now we're talking about a lot. It's like, okay, we've been able to connect with lives of people all over the world, and we don't want that to stop when everybody goes back to in person. So we're trying to figure out like our own hybrid strategy to keep this going, in person and online. And also for me personally, as a violist, I'm just gonna keep on playing whenever I can. I have different playing projects that I do with my own bands, and I'm just gonna keep playing. I never stop playing the viola. It's just something that I it's too much a part of me. That started a long time ago, and I haven't stopped playing since.
I'm glad that's one thing that will never change about yourself. That's always a great thing
I'm
to
not
keep in
planning
routine.
to stop playing the viola. And like literally, I would have to be not able to play physically for me to say, okay, I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. I'll go into well into 20, 30 years when I'm retired and stuff, and I'll still play recreationally and enjoy it. But for me, to the those are the two goals for 2021 for me, is to elevate the Bronx Arts Ensemble to a higher level globally, and also to for me myself to continue to play and enjoy being a violist.
Absolutely. And I must say, this has been an incredible episode 30 for the Change Within podcast. For those who haven't checked us out yet, you can please check us out at Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Judith, thank you very much for joining me today and have a great rest of your weekend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. This was great. It had me actually think about things that brought me from way back to this point now, and it's really great to reflect on things.
Absolutely incredible job and have a great rest of your weekend.
All right, thank you.
Bye bye.